Good morning, all. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the invitation. Came a long way to show a little bit our experience in Brazil. I think we have many similarities, many problems that we are facing there, most probably you are facing here. But the world is many different countries, different challenges. And I prepared an agenda. First, explaining a little bit about Brazil and comparing with Australia, comparing to other countries, because to work all over the world, it's not exactly the same because you have to deal with the local problems. How is BIM developing in Brazil, support from the government or not, or the international companies or not, and then explain a little bit about HOCHTIEF do Brasil. We are a construction company there, a medium-sized company, and all the measures we implemented these last years to be able to gain productivity and to try to add some value to our work. And BIM is one of the part of all these changes, and let's say the company started a long time ago because we saw that the whole construction industry would go through big changes in the future. Okay, then Brazilian changes. I put just a comparison between both countries because we don't know much about Australia or Asia, and you might not know much about South America. We have many similarities, but many differences. Let's put Australia, you know, 6th greatest country in the world, 25 million people, 1.6 GDP. I mean, and the Human Development Index is a quite high one. You're a developed country, English. When we compare to Brazil, okay, we are a big country in area. We can compare to Australia, 5th greatest, but 204 million. In 2017 to 210 million. This is huge difference. Only São Paulo and Rio is almost the size of the population of Australia. 26 states. I don't know how many here, but most probably much less. The GDP is almost similar, but we have almost 10 times more population. And then this makes our Human Development Index much lower. That means we are far behind when we compare the HDI index. And we have the language is Portuguese down there. South America is Spanish, and we speak Portuguese. That makes us a little bit isolated from the others. And we don't have so much contact with all the other countries because we have a huge coast, and it's difficult to, by train or by car, to reach the other countries. Then, when you have 200 million, everything is difficult to change. When we're talking about changes in our industry, everybody believes it's necessary. We are far behind the other industries, but to change something when you have a big country and a big population here is already difficult, but there it's not easy at all. And of course, we are an undeveloped country, or we want to be one day a developed country. Beautiful landscapes, different animals. Okay, a huge country, and we could put Europe inside it. I said, how I'm going to explain a little bit how it's to work there for a construction company. We are a German company, HOCHTIEF. I'm going to explain later. But we have a local presence because we are HOCHTIEF do Brasil. And I selected some examples just to show you this environment, because we bring in many concepts from the industry. That's correct. But a car industry, aerospace industry, It's much more stable than a construction industry. But the construction industry in a country like Brazil, it's quite complex. I was trying to find a word, but complex is a good word. It's not chaos, it's not stable, but it's complex. If you work south, north. Okay, I'll put some examples just to explain that. This was a construction we made some years ago in the rainforest. 1/3 of the country is the rainforest. It's just the forest. And you don't have much population there, just the forest. We went 200 kilometers. I did go there 3 times. There was a bauxite mine for Vale, how you say, it's the competitor of BHP, the Vale, Rio Tinto, and BHP, isn't it? These are the 3 big mining companies in the world. And they were exploring bauxite there to put a pipe, and they would pump 300 kilometers away for an aluminum factory. Didn't have much around, and we had that time recycle waste on site. But the near village there was open sewage on streets. And it took our truck more than 500 kilometers to find someone to get the recycled waste. I mean, we were consuming more CO2 just to deliver it. Then it's difficult to have certain procedures when the environment doesn't help. Another good example here, we built some years ago a 5-star hotel in São Paulo. HOCHTIEF was the general contractor. On the other job, we were just the civil works and some mechanical works. And Hilton, São Paulo is a huge city, more than 20 million inhabitants. And we had some, how you say, slums, we call favelas, nearby, and doesn't match too well to a 5-star hotel. We had to build social housing for them to remove them for another area. And this was a huge issue with the municipality, with the authorities, to remove all this population from around the new construction. Another example. We built some years ago an office building. You can notice that it's quite big compared to the residential buildings aside. This was a building 1,000 kilometers away from São Paulo, Vitória. We say it's not a big city, it's only 1 million inhabitants, a small city. And we were responsible for a general contractor there in the consortium with other Brazilian construction company. And we found some animals, I don't know the name in English, we call it a preá. It's not a mouse, it's not a rabbit, it's a preá, I don't know the name in English. And we wanted to be correctly, and we did call the authorities to remove them from the site. They came there and said, okay, we'll have a strict rules, but they went on strike for 45 days, and we couldn't start digging for the parking area until they finished their strike. I think the best way to show how it's to work there is to show you examples. And because you prepare everything, you design and productivity and so on, and IPD and so on, but then you get to a different environment, and it's not easy to cope with all these challenges that will appear every day. Another big issue in our country, it's compliance. Most probably you have heard about it. We have one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest scandal in the world, and it's to do with our industry. All the main contractors, they were paying 1% to 3% to work with the government. And they were caught, and This is a big issue. We do have a democracy in Brazil. This is quite positive. I mean, you can read on news everything. You're free to say whatever you want against or in favor of the government. And it's it's not old democracy. I think it's only 30 years old, but it's a real one. And this is really important, that this is the beginning to change the country. And the Brazilians, they believe in the future. They always believe that one day it will be much better. They are quite positive. We are a positive population. We have all the problems, but we try to see the good part of it. And when we consider our industry there, from the 20 main contractors, 12 were involved in this scandal. And this will change completely the whole industry, because we are quite close country to the world when we compare to others. And we have big contractors there, but they are national companies. Then for the future, we'll bring many opportunities for the international companies to perform in Brazil. Here, Odebrecht is the number one. I just named them 12 from the 20, larger ones are involved. And a big company in Brazil, just to give you an idea, is $3 billion turnover. I mean, when we compare to USA, the numbers are much smaller. Maybe when we compare to Australia, they are similar. Okay, another challenge to work in Brazil is we don't have a very stable environment. I put here the GDP growth against the construction, civil construction growth rates per year. If we see, if I turn around, you're not going to be able to. If we see here 2008, let's say the Brazil numbers, gray, 5, 0, 7.6, quite positive numbers. When we consider now minus 3.8, and the following year, minus 3.7, is a severe crisis. And you have to perform. Sometimes we have China numbers, but sometimes the industry stops. It's difficult. We are 50 years old there. It's really difficult for a construction company to work in such an environment. And construction follows usually the GDP of a country. Look, 13% in 1 year, 8.3, but now, this is what we're facing now, -8, -9. It's difficult to survive. It's really, really a challenge for us. And civil construction, I think this is similar to other countries. It's 5.5 to 6% of the whole economy. Maybe when we consider the whole chain, real estate, construction, materials, this will go up to 13, 15%. This is an important industry, but the feeling is we are behind the other industries. Let's understand a little bit more about this. My second item is BIM in Brazil. Not much. I'm going to explain how it started. And then a company like us, what we are doing is, we call it HTB, HOCHTIEF do Brasil. But let's see first in Brazil. When I put a timeline, we started maybe 10 years ago. The Sinduscom is the syndicate. I take part of this syndicate. It's like you promoting the first Congress, bringing people from abroad every year, explaining the good experience. We say in Brazil that we are the international copy center. We see the Americans, we see the Europeans, we see the Australians, and we try to see what we could implement there. But first norm, public norm, only 2012. And first bid, public bid, was a office building for the oil industry. Only 2012. First norm was 2010. 2012. And so far, we don't have much support because we have the federal government, the state government, and the municipality. We don't have much support. It's just starting now. Just now that we can see that they are seeing advantages to implement BIM. That means all the efforts are from the private sector, but not much support from the government to change the way we're working. I'll go a little bit more in details here to you to understand. When we consider the universities, we find some courses when you go to Rio, to São Paulo, to the main capitals. But when we put Brazil all together, you don't find everywhere BIM. And most of them, you find some post-graduation courses for BIM. And most of them are focused on how to manage a software, but not to manage, not construction manager, not to manage with BIM the whole process. That means we find in Rio, in São Paulo, in some other cities, but could we say that it's spread all over the country? No. I don't know here in Australia, because you're also quite concentrated in Melbourne, Sydney, in this area. I don't know how it is, and in smaller cities around the country. That means diffusion is more the architects. I think the software industry is responsible for that. They went there, the software industry, and they sold this softwares for them, and they started using. But other designers, we see some mechanical and electric, but smaller offices, they're not even considering using it. It means when you see the big groups or the big companies, they are using it. But when we get to the medium-sized and smaller ones, we find many that are not using it at all. Suppliers, we find some that will use it to fabricate conduits, the pipes, or the electrical parts, or the steel structure, but only the big ones. Many companies, they have pilot projects. As I said, first public bidding, and until now, only 4. This will change. It changes quite rapidly, but at the moment, this is the reality there. Very few technical standards. I think it's much easier for a country like Australia to get together and to implement something new. I believe even if United States, you have 50 states, or in Brazil, to implement something new in a country, the effort is much more effort than here. If you get maybe the 10 main contractors, the 10 main design offices, and you get together, it's much easier to implement something. But for us now, the distances, all these states and huge country, it's much more difficult for us. Then first, public regulation. And here comes the big issue that BIM helps with compliance, and compliance is a big issue at the moment. You know that we impeached our president because of this scandal. This was a huge scandal, and now we have a new government. It will be never the end, but it's the first time that you see people in prison. It's the first time that you speak openly about it. And this is negative because it did happen. It's positive because it shows that it's changing. And BIM can help us a lot, and the government saw that because you have the bill of quantities, you have the specifications, and you can check in a later stage. This helps the whole process to be more transparent. And you can check from the beginning to the end. Okay, then when I go to HOCHTIEF do Brasil, I would like first to talk a little bit about us, for you to understand who we are, and all these changes we have been doing last 15, I would say I put it last 15 years, and to really gain productivity. Okay, then HOCHTIEF do Brasil. We were, a HOCHTIEF group was sold 10 years ago to the Spanish. When we say HOCHTIEF International, is an ACS group. HOCHTIEF owns Turner in the United States, but HOCHTIEF is owned by ACS, the Spanish group, and they have many companies, and also some companies, construction, the big ones here in Australia. But we were sold at that time to a German group, HOCHTIEF do Brasil, Czech. Then we are a German, HOCHTIEF is a Spanish group, and HOCHTIEF do Brasil is a German company. You don't find many international companies in Brazil, and we say we are the only German HOCHTIEF around the world. Makes no difference if you are Brazilian or German there, but we work for the private market, we don't work for the government. One of the reasons is transparency. And okay, this is just building we delivered some months ago in Rio de Janeiro, but I'm going to show some later. We have 3 offices in Rio, in São Paulo, in the south. We have some other brands, labels like Tedesco, Kern. Kern is only for logistics centers. We are a general contractor. 50 years old, around 200 engineers, $300 million turnover. We are active in 3 different areas. In building market, I put just some examples, more than 500 projects, but here is a office building in São Paulo for the cosmetic company, or for the Brazilian bank we just finished last year. This is for Autonomy, American investment fund. In Porto Maravilha, we say Wonder Port in Rio de Janeiro. The TV network, an office building in São Paulo. We usually have 30 to 35 projects going on. We are active in the industrial market. Brazil is strong in pulp and paper. We have an example here for Klabin, is a local company, or a float glass in the northeast. We are building the new Mercedes-Benz car factory. I did hear that the car factories are leaving Australia. In Brazil, they are implementing new factories. We have almost all brands there. I think because of the size of the population. Okay, here's other examples in the south, but all kind of industries. And third area, we work a little bit with infrastructure. We build small hydroelectric power plants. We've built there 9 so far, with EPC, engineering, procurement and construction. Or here we have a combined cycle gas and vapor for Alstom in Rio de Janeiro. We were responsible for the civil works and steel structure. I mean, 3 different areas, a contractor. We focus on construction, and we try to sell pre-construction and construction for the market. I'm going to explain a little bit. This is one of the big changes that we are implementing in the company last years. But construction is the main. Then let's understand a little bit these changes, and I will go through details what we did. I think nobody doubts about the future trends of the industry. We've been talking about this, I think, 20 years or even more, that sustainability, important building, information modeling, lean construction. When we say buildings operation, is the whole life cycle of a building. I mean, we know what we should do The problem is it's not that easy. I might be wrong after this Congress, but I try to position, and I say Brazil is far below when we consider these future trends. I put it HOCHTIEF to Brazil, maybe in between. I know it's not fair with Europe when you consider Denmark, Norway, they are really, but when we put an average, I said, this is my impression, this is what I put. I mean, we see usually the main contractors in the United States, they are really well positioned with these future trends. And okay, maybe after this seminar, maybe I will put Australia in first place, I don't know. I hope so. But it's clear for everyone why you don't do it. Because the design people, they have already problems communicating only between themselves. And then you have to talk to the construction industry. But we have to talk to our clients, to the investors. Then this is a huge... So how is it evolving? I don't know where we are, but some place in between. Let's understand a little bit more. Okay, just before, we use in HOCHTIEF do Brasil the 3D, 4D, 5D, some examples of fabrication. We still don't have contracts with the 6D facility management together. That means mostly we get into 5D and only some special cases in big constructions that we will fabricate something. When I put a timeline in HOCHTIEF do Brasil, a BIM timeline, I wanted just to talk a little bit about BIM, and then I will go to the other changes, and then I will come back to BIM, just to position, because I think BIM is just one part. I'm not a BIM specialist. I'm a businessman. I am a builder. And what we want is to be more efficient. And BIM came in 2012. No, okay, let me do it like this, and then it's easier for me to explain. It came before 2012, because we are a HOCHTIEF company. I remember talking to the Americans in the 90s, saying we have to project delivery system. It doesn't make sense that we just go for the construction. I remember having discussions with Nick Bilotti at that time, saying we need to provide the whole process. We need to step in the first moment, even before they hire the design. We need to talk about what they will need after the building is ready, because it's not always the same. And they call it project delivery systems. They say, we will provide everything, and then we have to discuss if the client is a specialist, if the client has engineering inside the company or not, if it's a professional, if it's the owner, if it's the investor. You cannot have one standard. You have to talk. It's like a doctor. He said it hurts for a child, but he has 6 years college, 5 years specialization. He went to Boston for 2 years and so on. And the father says, and the mother says, just a moment, it hurts here. It's a lot that we have to, and it's difficult, this conversation. Because you know too much, but we don't know how to sell. The clients, we say BIM, or I don't know, construction or facility management, you have to explain all the time what we're doing. And this is not correct. We have to change the way we talk to the market, to the investors, to the owners. Because we are the specialists, but we just want to use the computer. We don't want to understand what's inside or the cellular phone. We just want to use it and see the advantages. I think this is something important. Then Turner was already talking about the whole cycle 20 years ago. And HOCHTIEF was already talking about the Unicat Vicon. I remember, do you want to see it in 3D? This was 16 years ago. We charge you $10,000. You can show your client in 3D. You just send it to Germany and I send you back there. It means we have many, we're talking about long time ago, but I thought it was only possible in the big projects where all the suppliers and all the design people were international and big companies, and they got together for either a shopping center in Qatar, I remember, or a huge building in Dubai. And this is possible. You put it, all the group all the way together, and it was possible to implement the new technology. But for us, we were a medium-sized company. Then we said, look, I will follow what you're doing, but we started only in Brazil, the implementation in 2012. We consider us a medium-sized company. And then we set up the first BIM team, and then did hire a third-party consultancy to help us start. Because you can implement in one job site, you can implement in your company, or you can implement in the whole industry. It's different implementations. We have a head office, but we have an office also in Rio. We have another office in the south. If you have a big construction, everybody stays on site, is one way you should implement. But if you want really to change your company, it's a different way that you should implement. Pilot, let's say 4 and 5D only 2 years ago. And now just first studies for the 6D. I mean, it's something old and new for us. Older, we've been discussing this for 20 years. Turner is an international company. You have all the access to all the information you need around the world. But to implement, at least in our opinion, we said we cannot do it. We have to go step by step. Then, what have we done? Have to change the way we build industrialization. Have to change our personnel, because if you want to change the way you work, you have the same engineers and architects, they will come from university. Then training, huge program for training. The way we work, the way we are organized, the systems. I did separate some here to explain more details. And I think we started in 2000, this 16 years old. Let's see a little bit about the structure. I don't know here, but our structure was the traditional structure, the CEO, industrial, technical, and commercial departments isolated. And we changed it completely in '99. This is almost 20 years ago. That means another strategic alignment, another how we will work to allocate our resources. And we said we have the board of directors, the project teams, and the support teams, like the units and the service units. Then to work by a process and not by departments. I think this is really important because it's a lot behind here. I don't know how many companies, but in Brazil we still have many companies that works not in a process basis. Here allows you to prospect, and you have to talk to your client and explain that he has to change the way he will hire a construction company if he wants to take benefits in the whole cycle. Because for the other industries, it's so clear. When you buy an airplane, the first question is how much, gasoline it will, kerosene will consume monthly. It's so clear for the client that he will ask about the future performance. In Brazil, it's not so clear. When you talk here, he's thinking maybe how he's getting the contract, or to think in the first moment, you have not only to change your company, but you have also to teach the market, teach your client that the way he's contracting you, he's hiring you, is not the correct way, it's not the most efficient one. Not easy. You have all the compliance from the banks. No, I mean, you have to go to the design and build, design, bid and build to design and build. Otherwise, you won't be able really to have time, that we call pre-construction, to really think about what we're going to do and take advantage during construction and during the future. Then we have a leader. The leader should step in the first moment, and all the departments, procurement, engineering, they will step in and out, all third parties. Then when we see an opportunity, we have the project teams at the office, and they will follow all the way. I know I did hear that here in Australia, you perform a lot design and build. But in Europe, I know many countries, they still have design, bid and build. And I think United States also, at least in Brazil, a lot. Then we have to change the way. It's not easy at all. And to have this language that we talk to the owner or to the investor, we cannot show so clearly what are my advantages, how much is going to cost, I'm going to save time or not. Then first of all, we have to believe that changing the way we work to a process, to integrate it, it will bring benefit. This is the first step. If you don't do it, second, you have to convince your client. So far, we did more than 70 projects, different projects, last 15 years, that we stepped in with design and build, and not design, bid, and build. It's really difficult. And this is a big change for us. And of course, just to show the BIM, it's helping all the way. Even when we go prospecting, we can show a 3D image and convince him that have a beautiful, it's marketing. But only when we will be really integrated, they might start buying this whole, because it's all together. It's not implementing BIM, it's not industrialization, it's not just training. Let's go a little bit further to understand that these all changes, they should come together. Otherwise, we won't be able to be 100% efficient. I'll say, like, you produce a car and you say, yes, the cars are ready. All of them, yes, only the accelerator didn't arrive. We're going to start laughing how the accelerator didn't arrive. For us, it's so normal that 90% goes in order, but then we have some problems. For other industries, you start laughing. How come everything is ready and the accelerator didn't arrive? And it's going to take some time until, because we have a 10 for the facade or a 10 in some, but we have to bring the whole construction. If one item is failing, it's not ready, it will harm the whole process. Then we implemented a BIM team. This was also an important decision. Should we do it internally, externally, BIM manager, BIM coordinator, BIM consulting, and first the architects and then the other designers, and on sites 4D to manage the planning on sites. And we did ask for international help. AngelWorks is helping us there. They have an office in Argentina, in Brazil, United States, in Europe, I think in Middle East. And it was a good conversation that should we just hire a third party, should we develop all alone? I think this combination, we are satisfied with this combination. You should step up a team, but you need a third part advice, because he will bring all the experience around the world, that you don't commit the same mistakes that others have. It's only the BIM team. Now, And then we have the universities in Brazil or all around the world, and young engineers will come, architects, and we saw that we need to implement as a university inside our company, because there's many problems here. The young people, they are more similar with the softwares and so on. But the experienced engineers and architects, no. Then we have a lack of a generation here. Then we did start training, this was 15 years ago, many different programs. Because it's not only a software, here the words are in Portuguese, but the software system, languages. How many speak English or not? We have Portuguese as a country language. Technical for the first level, second level, management. FAIL is productivity on sites. Then we have all these programs going on. People say, do we still have some time to build our contracts? It's a huge effort from a company to raise. We did send some engineers to Canada, some to Germany, some to the United States. They stayed 1 or 2 years, they came back. We made some agreements with a German university that they will spend some years there and we will send our personnel there. It takes a long time until you look to your team and say, wow, now we are really raising the average. Nothing against the universities, but it's difficult to teach so much. And most probably, I think the universities should change the way. You don't have architects and engineers anymore. We should have before you start construction. Shouldn't be an architect, shouldn't be an engineer, should be a really experienced person that will talk about what's going to happen in 10 years' time, what's going to happen now, what's going to happen during construction. It doesn't exist, this person. If it exists, most probably has no hair or white hair, but not a young that is a BIM specialist. Then number of trained people. The SAP is the ERP, I'm going to explain a little bit later, system. SAP is well known all over the world. Kubus it's the add-on for the SAP to build quantities, the specifications for, we call it Kubus in the I2 that will bring the information. I will explain a little bit later. Then a lot of people being trained. Okay, let's go to another point. I don't need to point out the advantages of industrialization. But when we compare to other industries, we are really starting. Because it's so difficult, because we build a hydroelectric power plant, next day a data center, next day a school, a 5-star. We are building 5-star hotel or a hospital at the moment, an office building, a residential building, wow. Then it's not always the same construction. Then it's so difficult for the industrialization. But it's clear that we need to go forward in this direction. We started a long time ago. I put just an example. This was 15 years ago in that Hilton hotel. We did build bathrooms 1,000 kilometers away in Brasilia. I remember that, the capital, and we brought all this 8x8, this ready bathrooms for a 5-star hotel. This was 15 years ago. It means we know how to do it, but it doesn't help if you just do the bathroom or just the facade or just the precast contract. We have to go all the way. Still, at least for us, a long way to go. Then people, progress, integrated processes, industrialization. You have to go all together, all these changes, in my opinion, to really achieve competitiveness. Let's see a little bit about the systems As I said, the SAP was in 2000. It was a huge change to put this SAP in the when they have, you integrate all your procedures. And then 4 years later, the Kubus, that this is the technical part, will bring all the quantities and the bidding process and specifications to the system. And Probit is that you have a management information to the company or to the other companies. But only in 2014, we put in the I2, this was only 2 years ago, that we could extract the data directly for our ERP system, the SAP, from the model, and to get all the specifications and quantities. And the I2, why the I2? Because the company was using in Germany and said, let's start with the same one. Most probably in the future, we're going to evaluate again if we find other better softwares. But it will talk between the ERP and the model and the specifications you have. That means it's a long way to introduce this in a company, because you have your systems and it's many changes going on. Then I2 will bring all this information. Okay, I put some examples. There are many others. I mean, you have to change completely the way you have been working for all your life, but you have to bring your subcontractors together. But you have to talk to your client and say, you have to hire us in a different way. And he says, sorry about it, I want the bid process. And I don't feel comfortable putting you on table on the first day. How I know? Then we know, but it's difficult to explain. I take part in a group of businessmen. It's called YPO. I don't know, most of you have it here in Australia. And I put 15 friends together, and they are businessmen, and say, would you buy? And say, no, this way, no. You want me to hire you in the first moment. Then we need good examples. We need others that will say, this is the best way to do it. And I think this is a long process, and the industry is changing, and everyone that has a good example will tell the others. I did show a photo from a factory. Steel is a German company to cut the wood. I don't know how to say it in English. And it's a worldwide. And we did it, design and build with BIM. And he said, oh, I'm really, really satisfied with what we saw here. And then he's going to tell others, and the others will come. And this is a long process. Okay, I put it a little bit of some examples of our experience. This is an office building. We just finished this year in São Paulo, the model and the real photo. Most of our constructions, we have the clash detection, the MEP modeling for the implementation sites but we don't, only in this case, some prefabrication of the MEP, some conduits. Another example here, this building, it will finish in 1 or 2 months' time in Rio de Janeiro, is a new area. This new area is Porto Maravilha, the Wonder Port. Have many, many new buildings there. It will take some time until the area will be developed. And in this case, also always clash detection and some contingency and support for the MEP modeling. But never IPD, the whole process. No, we don't have many examples there. This is a data center in São Paulo. In this case, we did use a lot to run the site there for the planning, for the time scheduling. We're building a 4 Seasons hotel in São Paulo. We are the general contractor. We have to deliver it in end of 2017. In this case, they sent us the design already in BIM, but the model, in our opinion, this is also a problem, because in this case was designed by one group, construction by another, and will be run by Four Seasons, and the owner are the Abu Dhabi state fund and a local family in Brazil. They are the investors. We are the general contractor, and all these specifications come from Four Seasons International, that they have a certain standard for all the buildings they built. And we did a lot of adaptations in this model for us to be able to perform during the project. Okay, it's difficult to have a conclusion here, but I said, it's just buy a book and be rich. Some people think it's like this, just buy the book, just buy a software BIM, and that's it. No. It's an organization adaptation, but it's not an organization only from the construction company that I was showing. It should be an adaptation of the organization of your client, of the whole industry, who takes some time still. It's a completely change of mindset, that we should laugh if something like the car industry, if something is one part of the car is missing, we'll be laughing. We should laugh in the future if we get, here 10 is a good grade or 1 is a good grade, 10. If we get 10 in the facade, in the bathroom, but 0 in, I don't know, granite, we should laugh, and it's not the case. I mean, we have to change the mindset of the whole industry. It's the future, but we have to change our clients. Otherwise, we have to change the way we talk to them. We cannot talk BIM. We have to talk their language. How much they will save, why they should hire this way and not that way. What is the clear advantage when you buy a car? 0 to 100 kilometers, how many seconds? Gas per kilometer, I don't know. We have to talk their language. Otherwise, we're going to stay discussing inside our industry, like doctors discussing something about your operation. We have to talk their language. It's a huge effort to do it. It will not stop here. But so far, in 2 days, we will start the Olympic Games in Brazil. I hope we have just minor problems, not big ones. Unfortunately, without using much BIM so far. All these constructions, very, very little BIM was used. You are all invited. I'd like to thank you for your time. I'm available for any questions. Thank you very much.